Back at the start of 2023, I set myself a challenge to try and find all 160 PAL released PlayStation 1 Platinum games and to build the ultimate PlayStation 1 collection. But with a twist. I wanted to collect all 160 of these games over the course of 2023. 160 games in 365 days. Will I complete the challenge? In today's episode, we find out, and also I'll be unveiling my brand new challenge for 2024, and things are only going to get bigger. Hit the music. Again, folks, and welcome back to the PlayStation Platinum Project for a final time. My challenge for 2024 to try and find all 160 PAL released PlayStation 1 games. And here we are at the final episode, a few days into 2024, and the challenge is over. I gave myself 365 days to find these 160 games, and this is where we are at. This is the final episode, and today we have the exciting conclusion of the PlayStation Platinum Project. If you enjoyed this episode, please hit the like button and please subscribe, as I put new videos out every Saturday night at 5, as well as bonus content throughout the week, and I really want you folks along for the ride. And if you missed a single episode of the PlayStation Platinum Project, or if you want to relive this incredible series, I'll link all the episodes down below in a playlist. And make sure you hit that subscribe button, as remember, at the end of today's episode, I'll be unveiling my even bigger, even crazier challenge for 2024, and you do not want to miss it. The penultimate episode of the PlayStation Platinum Project was in the middle of December, and at the end of that episode we had 15 games left to find. But time was running out, and we will find out in today's episode if I manage to find the final 15 games as I count down all 160 games for the PlayStation Platinum Project, and find out finally once and for all if I manage to complete the PlayStation Platinum Project. Let's get into it. This list right here has been the backbone of the PlayStation Platinum Project. This list right here, to the best of my knowledge and to the best extent of research I can do, is a definitive list of all 160 games that were released in the PAL region for the PlayStation 1. But this has been an issue all the way through the PlayStation Platinum Project. It is very difficult to find a definitive list of every single PAL released PlayStation 1 game, and like I said, to the best of my knowledge, this is the best list available. And it's actually shocking how little research has been done into the PlayStation Platinum library, but hopefully with this series I've really helped to research, and hopefully at the end of this episode we'll have a more definitive list of how many PlayStation Platinum 1 games were released in the PAL region. We'll be going through the list in this episode of the PlayStation Platinum Project games in alphabetical order, and we are starting off with 3 James Bond games. And right off the bat, I'm happy to say we've managed to pick up all 3 of these games. These were fairly easy to pick up, to be honest. This first one, 007 Racing, not the best Bond game of all time, but one of the many games that I found in one of the many amazing independent gaming stores around the UK. Like I've said countless times in this series, this was something I wanted to do with the PlayStation Platinum Project, to shine a spotlight on some of the amazing retro gaming stores around the UK, and hopefully I've done that and showed you there's so many good stores to visit here in the UK. Next up we have Tomorrow Never Dies. Yes, released around the same time as GoldenEye the N64, this is what the PlayStation 1 got, and it's not quite as good. And then finally, the follow-up to that one, 007, The World Is Not Enough. So far on the PlayStation Platinum Project, 3 for free. Like I said, all throughout the PlayStation Platinum Project, I've used this physical list as well as a digital list on my mobile phone to catalogue these games. And it's not until today that I've gone to record this episode that I've realised a slight error. So the next 2 games here are Ace Combat and Ace Combat 3, which is strange they'd have the first and third game in a franchise. So I go to my shelf to get the games off the shelf, and here we have Air Combat. Yes, this game is on the list, but mistakenly I have crossed this one off rather than Air Combat. I'm still making the same mistake. It is Ace Combat, which I'm sadly missing from the PlayStation Platinum project. But here is the thing, even though I mistakenly crossed the wrong game off the list, I cannot find anywhere on the internet a mention of Ace Combat Platinum for the PlayStation 1. Air Combat is super common, but with Ace Combat I cannot find anything about that game. Like I said, this list, to the best of my knowledge, is a definitive version, and unfortunately there are other games that are incredibly hard to find on this list coming up, but thankfully we do have Ace Combat 3 for the PlayStation Platinum project. Next up, we have two of the many football games released for the PlayStation Platinum collection. Now remember, when it comes to the PlayStation Platinum games, these are all games that sold over 400,000 copies. Only then were these games awarded the Platinum release. So the first game is a game which was a bit of a pain to find, Actual Soccer. That's because randomly some of these older sports games are getting very hard to find, and when we did originally order this, it did come with the black label disc. That's because, of course, when we order these games, they need to come complete with the manual preferably, and definitely have the Platinum disc. And secondly, we have a game which was very hard to find, and I think it was sent to me or found in a local game shop by a viewer of the channel. That's one of the things that blew me away about the PlayStation Platinum project. The support of the retro gaming community. Without you folks, I would never have got this far in the PlayStation Platinum project and found games such as Adidas Power Soccer. What I have loved about the PlayStation Platinum project is going back and reliving or playing for the first time some of the absolutely classic games that the PlayStation 1 had to offer. Games such as Alien Trilogy, which honestly, for like 20 years after its release, there wasn't a better Aliens game. Here is the other thing with the PlayStation Platinum project. Some of these games are getting very hard to find. And here is the thing. I was looking for all 160 Platinum PAL released games. Now PAL does not, of course, just mean here in the UK. It means Europe as well as Australia. And some of these games were exclusive to certain countries. And this means some of these games got very expensive. Games such as this one, Alone in the Dark. And here is the thing, a lot of these PlayStation 1 Platinum games either got very small releases or are just getting very expensive to find. But something which did surprise me over the course of the PlayStation Platinum project is how a lot of these games, in CEX at least, have gone down in price. Games such as Ape Escape, an absolute classic on the PlayStation 1, and a game which normally, with a lot of the PlayStation games, you can get the Platinum version slightly cheaper than the Black Label version, and this one has actually gone down over the course of 2023, as have honestly a lot of the PlayStation 1 Platinum games in CEX. But the thing is, it's the availability, and these are getting harder and harder to find. At the end of the last episode of the PlayStation Platinum project, we were left with 15 games left to find, and as I said, the help of friends, family and the retro gaming community has blown me away over the course of the PlayStation Platinum project. And this game was sent to me as a gift by the same person who gifted me, if you saw a recent video I did of a massive bundle of games. And she thankfully sent me one of the last games of the PlayStation Platinum project, Atlantis: The Last Empire. It is really surprising how hard some of these Disney games are to find for the PlayStation Platinum project, and honestly, this is the first of many, and the first of many games which was either sent to me, traded, donated, or just people told me it for sale. And honestly, without you folks, I'd have never got this far in the PlayStation Platinum project. So we are through the numbers and the A's of the PlayStation Platinum project, and so far we have got 13 out of the 14 games, one of which I have missed, maybe due to human error or maybe just due to the fact it does not exist. As I said, it is very hard to find a definitive list, but onwards and upwards, so far we're only missing one. As I said, we have 160 of these games to go through, so we're going to rattle through another load here. So first off, we have A Bug's Life, a game which I picked up, I think, in a crazy gaming store in Great Yarmouth called Play. Next up, we have an absolutely fantastic beat-up that I only tried out for the first time due to the PlayStation Platinum project, and that is Battle Arena Toshinden. Next up, we have a classic puzzle game, Buster Move 2. Then we have a very underrated game, a fantastic game on the PlayStation 1, C12 Final Resistance. Another hidden gem, dare I say. Not quite as good as Metal Gear, but if you enjoy Metal Gear Solid, you definitely want to check out Chase Express. It's crazy, such a good game. And then next up we have one of the most staple games of the PlayStation 1, Colin McRae Rally. But next up we have a problem. But first off, just jumping in here because I missed it earlier in the recording. Yes, we do have Colin McRae 2.0. Two games which I've not managed to find for the PlayStation Platinum project, but not for want of trying. Colony Wars and Colony Wars Red Sun. I'm going to say it now, to the best of my knowledge, I think, even though these games are on the list, I cannot find any reference to these games existing anywhere in the world, except for a listing on the CEX website, but they've never been in stock. So far, these are, out of this list, there's 3 games which I question if they exist. But honestly, this series has been all about learning, so if you know anything else to the contrary, please let me know in the comments down below. Next up we have 2 games from one of my favourite genres, real-time strategy games, and honestly 2 of the best strategy games ever released, Command & Conquer and Command & Conquer Red Alert. Now on the list we have Command & Conquer, Command & Conquer Red Alert, and Command & Conquer Red Alert Retaliation. Now, I spoke to one of you viewers over the course of 2023 and he seems to agree with me that these are the only 2 Command & Conquer games released for the PlayStation Platinum releases. So honestly, sadly, is another one which I do not think exists in Command & Conquer Red Alert Retaliation. The PlayStation Platinum project has been about 2 main things: organisation and oddities. And next up we have a classic example of both. So for the PlayStation Platinum project, they released Cool Borders 2, 3 and 4, but not Cool Borders 1. So I guess Cool Borders 1 did not sell 400,000 copies, which is absolutely crazy. Oh, what's also crazy is somehow I've managed to mislay my copy of Cool Borders 3. I know I have it, I'm sure there's video evidence, but if you're a game collector like myself, you'll know organisation is key, and unfortunately it's somewhere here in my games collection. But I do have Cool Borders 2, 3 and 4. And thankfully I do have every single Crash Bandicoot game they released for the PlayStation Platinum project. So we have Crash Bandicoot, Crash Bandicoot 2, Crash Bandicoot Warped, Crash Bash, and of course Crash Team Racing. And honestly, when it comes to games like the Crash Bandicoot games, I think that these are the ones that are going to go up in value over the next few years. Let's get into our next run of games, and it starts off quite well. We do have Croc Legend of the Gobos, a bit of an underrated platform game from the PS1, sadly overshadowed by the likes of probably better games such as Crash Bandicoot. But unfortunately then we do have another miss with, I could not find a copy of Dancing Stage Euromix. You would presume, yes, it's probably a European exclusive, but unfortunately I cannot find any record of that game. But fear not, we do have Dancing Stage Party Edition to get our dancing fix. Then we have an absolutely iconic trilogy. We have Destruction Derby, Destruction Derby 2, and Destruction Derby Raw, which I picked up at one of the many gaming conventions I visited in 2023. And fingers crossed I'll be visiting even more in 2024. Then we have another fantastic trilogy, this time on one game, with Die Hard Trilogy. And then we have one of the most elusive games which it took me nearly the longest time to find for the PlayStation Platinum project, and this one really tested how far literally I was willing to travel. This one was enlisted in a CEX store in Cambridge, so about 2 hours drive from me. It is Digimon World. It is one of the more expensive PlayStation Platinum games. That's the thing with the PlayStation Platinum project. It's not all about price, it's about availability. And unfortunately, the next game on the list is Dino Crisis 2. And this is another game I cannot find any record of existing other than the fact it was on these lists that I had found online through my research. But unfortunately I've not been able to find Dino Crisis 2, which is a real shame. It's one of my favourite games on the PlayStation 1, and at the end of the day, at least I own that game on the black label so I can play the game, because at the end of the day, game collecting is about nothing more than playing the actual games. I love collecting, but games are to be played. But fear not, we may not have got Dino Crisis 2, but we have got Disney's Dinosaur, the first of many, many Disney games. Let's get into some of these many Disney games released then for the PlayStation Platinum Project. So first off we have Disney's Aladdin. Then we have Disney's action game featuring Hercules, which is actually a pretty solid game. Then Disney's Tarzan, Disney's Treasure Planet, Disney's Donald Duck Quack Attack, and then we move back into more familiar games with Doom, and then without a doubt, quite possibly the two most readily available PlayStation 1, not just Platinum games, but pretty much the two most common PlayStation 1 games, Driver and of course Driver 2, which brings us on to our next pickup here in the final episode of the PlayStation Platinum Project. In here we have a game which has taken us nearly 12 months to find. It is Disney's The Emperor's New Groove. I have no idea why this one was so hard to find, but it's another one to cross off the list for the PlayStation Platinum Project. Let's get into our next set of games, and first off we have F1 Championship Season 2000, and next up we are going into some EA games. It's in the game. But one of the main things about EA when it comes to their Platinum releases, some of them had this terrible cover, such as the EA Classics Platinum range. I know a lot of people don't like the Platinum covers, but somehow EA made it even worse. And talking of EA games, we have to talk about EA Sports, FIFA, and FIFA had over 9 years on the PlayStation 1, and there's a lot of FIFA games on this list. The first of which is FIFA Soccer 96, a surprisingly hard one to find. Next up we have, I just want to make sure I don't miss any of these, FIFA Road to World Cup 98. I think we all remember World Cup 98. It's probably best we forget. Then we go to FIFA 99, and then onto FIFA 2000. Now this is where it gets difficult. On the PlayStation Platinum Project, there's still 2 FIFA games left for me to find. Now I've missed these games repeatedly on eBay. That's because I think both of these are French or German exclusive. They did not get a UK release. And I still haven't managed to find both of them as such as of yet. That's because I have always been transparent with the PlayStation Platinum Project. One of you viewers reached out to me on the 1st of January to say they had a copy of FIFA 2001. It is still on the way here, but this is the thing. The entire idea of the PlayStation Platinum Project, yes, was to collect all 160 games over the course of 2023, but if I can sneak games in afterwards, I'm still looking to complete the PlayStation Platinum Project. We just didn't complete it quite in time. But we move on. And we are moving on to 3 of the most iconic games on the PlayStation 1. And here's the thing, back in the day when the PlayStation was in stores, games were expensive. Back in the 90s, these games were £40 when they first came out. And here's the thing, with the Platinum release, these games were then selling for £20. So you could play some of these massive games for half the price of a brand new game. Games such as Final Fantasy VII, being able to pick this up for 20 quid back in the day was an absolute steal, and it doesn't stop there. We have Final Fantasy VIII and of course Final Fantasy IX, completing the trilogy of PlayStation 1 Final Fantasy Platinum releases. Let's get into our next set of games. We have a triple whammy of F1 games. So starting off with the OG Formula 1 on the PlayStation 1. Then we go to Formula 1 97, and it wasn't until 4 years later that we got Formula 1 2001. This is one of the very few games where when I ordered it online, I was sent the black label version, and thankfully I managed to find this Platinum copy on Vinted. And in the PlayStation Platinum Project, I only ever bought 2 games off Vinted, which honestly is quite a surprise. Next up we have one of my favourite games on the PS1, a game which when it first came out I played all night long. That is G-Police. Then we have quite possibly, I'm just going to say it, 2 of the most iconic games on the PlayStation 1, Gran Turismo and of course Gran Turismo 2, 2 of the greatest racing games of all time. And then we are going into what I think is probably my most played game on the PlayStation 1 of all time. I still love this game to this day. It is Grand Theft Auto. When this game first came out, oh my, that night, I played until I could not keep my eyes open. I was obsessed with this game, and it's a real rarity here on the PlayStation Platinum collection, as we have not one, but 2 copies. So we have the UK version and the European version, just one of the many oddities of the PlayStation Platinum project. When it comes to video game collecting, nothing is more important to me than condition. So check out the condition of this game, Heart of Darkness, which is complete and even has the unpunched 3D glasses which came with this game, even though it is a very, very disturbing and scary game, even though it's meant for children. Another scary game we have In Cold Blood. Then we have equally scary, For Your Thumbs, we have Track and Field. I think we all broke a couple of controllers and also our fingers playing this one back in the day. Then continuing on from Konami, we have 2 ISS games. The first of which, International Superstar Soccer Pro, is very, very easy to find. Then we have ISS Pro Evolution, which a viewer of the channel found for me in a local store just down the road in Kings Lynn, the Retro Realm. And honestly, I was surprised how hard this one was to find for a sports game. This is one of the games that's getting harder to find. Next up, going for one of the hardest games to find, we have probably the most common game on a PlayStation Platinum release, The Italian Job. Then we have some oddities. We go back to the Disney games, this time Disney's Lilo and Stitch, Trouble in Paradise. And then next on the list should be Loaded, but in the very first episode of the PlayStation Platinum project, I came across this game in my local game store in Last Level Games. Walt Disney's The Jungle Book Groove Party. This game is not on the list. I cannot find many listings for this game, but it has the Platinum label. It's not on the list, but I'm adding it to the PlayStation Platinum collection. Yes, there's some games I couldn't find on the list, but I find it ironic I managed to find a game which wasn't on the list, so I'm expanding the PlayStation Platinum list. One of the main reasons I decided to undertake the PlayStation Platinum Project Challenge was because of the width and breadth of games that are released under the PlayStation Platinum banner. Overhead adult shooters such as Loaded, side-scrolling movie tie-in games, be they brutally hard with Jurassic Park The Lost World, even some of the most amazing franchises sadly lost to time, such as Legacy of Kain, Soul Reaver. But one of the things I didn't realise when I decided to undertake the PlayStation Platinum project was how hard it was going to be to find some of these games. Games such as this one, Lucky Luke, which was only released in France under the Platinum label. I cannot believe I've managed to find what I believe is one of the rarest PlayStation 1 Platinum games ever released, and I must admit I didn't manage to find this without the help of one of you viewers who posted a link to eBay on my account, and I've never clicked a link so quick as when I bought this one. Moving on, the PlayStation 1 is not famous for its first-person shooters because honestly they haven't aged too well. Games such as Medal of Honor and Medal of Honor Underground, but something that has aged like a fine wine is the medieval games. These were so good they got a re-release on the PlayStation 4, and all I had to do basically was update the graphics, and honestly they have the best named heroine of all time, Serdan. And we're going to finish this section with arguably the most iconic game on the PlayStation 1. That is of course Metal Gear Solid. Yes, I own the black label, but of course I had to own the Platinum release for the PlayStation Platinum project. All throughout 2023, the PlayStation Platinum project has been an absolutely crazy ride. It has been stressful, it has been manic, but it has been really, really rewarding, both in collecting goals, travelling goals, and just speaking to you folks watching the amazing retro gaming community. But it definitely has taken its toll. It's been a very difficult collection, and sadly mistakes have been made along the way, which we'll get into in a minute. So this next section we have Mickey's Wild Adventure, another Disney game. Then we have Micro Machines V3, one of the best multiplayer games on the PS1. Another Disney game, Disney's Monsters Inc. Monopoly, because then you can't flip the board. A game which was surprisingly hard to find, Mortal Kombat Trilogy. Then this is where it starts to get strange. So we have Moto Racer, easy enough game to find. Moto Racer 2, again a fairly common game. Then Moto Racer World Tour, which I think this is the French exclusive version. I think this was released in other territories, but this is the French copy. Then, like I said, it's been very stressful on the PlayStation Platinum project. We have Need for Speed Road Challenge, and then coming up next should be Need for Speed Porsche 2000, and unfortunately we have another copy of Need for Speed Road Challenge. Unfortunately, this one is a case of human error. It is fairly easy, you would think, to get a copy of Need for Speed Porsche 2000. There is copies on eBay at the minute, but unfortunately I just have not bought one. But again, I will just finish the story at some point. But moving on very quickly, we go into Oddworld Abe's Odyssey, which has been a game which is quite easy to get. Now, I have ordered a few times from CEX Oddworld Abe's Exodus. Now, on eBay, this is a very, very expensive game. In CEX, this is a fairly cheap game. Unfortunately, every time I ordered this game from CEX, they cancelled my order or sent me a black label copy. So I had to go on eBay and buy this copy of Oddworld Abe's Exodus for, yes, that amount of money. This is a very hard game to find the platinum release of, and as I said, this has been a crazy, crazy ride. Some may say this ride has been pandemonium. The entire mantra of the PlayStation Platinum project was to try and find all 160 of these PlayStation 1 PAL released Platinum games over the course of 2023, but unfortunately when it comes to this next game, time and unfortunately money did run out. I wanted to order this game when I got paid in December, but unfortunately this game is only available in Europe and it would not arrive in time, and it is an expensive game, so unfortunately at the moment I do not have a copy of Parasite Eve 2. The PlayStation 1 Platinum project has always been a race against time and also with finances, as some of these games can be very expensive, and that is one unfortunately I've not been able to add to the PlayStation Platinum project just due to time, money and rarity. But moving on, of course, there's still lots of games we did manage to find. Games such as Peter Pan Adventures in Neverland. So who needs Parasite Eve 2 when you have this one? Then we have some of the really cheap, easy to pick up games such as PGA Tour 96, Horse Challenge, a game that I still grit my teeth over now, Rayman, because at the start of the PlayStation Platinum project I passed on buying this at a car boot for a £5. Eventually I did crack and buy this from a seller at the London gaming market for £6, and then a few months later it was donated to me for the collection for free. But in the end I suppose I did eventually get this game for the PlayStation Platinum project for free. Even though I did go to CX and buy Rayman 2. Next up, we have some games which have held their value surprisingly highly with the Resident Evil games. We have Resident Evil and the iconic Resident Evil 2. These are two games where the prices have not really gone down for the PlayStation Platinum project, and between the two of these I think they were 50 quid, which goes to show some of these games are very expensive, but some are fairly cheap, like Ridge Racer Revolution, and again Road Rash. But with a lot of these it just comes down to rarity. This was a game which was finally donated to me very near the end of the PlayStation Platinum project, Rugrats the movie in Paris. Not an expensive game, but a hard game to find. At the end of the day, finding them is half the battle with the PlayStation Platinum project. Talking of price, next up we have Silent Hill, the Platinum release. Now, the price of Silent Hill over the course of 2023 has gone crazy. At the start of the year or late last year, I bought Silent Hill Black Label on the PlayStation 1 for around £75. Now, that game has gone up to £90 for the Black Label release. In comparison, the Platinum release has actually gone down over the course of 2023 to £62. So, I have said from the start of the PlayStation Platinum project, this will be one of the very last games I order for the PlayStation Platinum project. So, I got paid a couple of days before the end of 2023, straight on the CX website, ordered me a copy. There's no copies in my area. I had to go for a CEX roulette. But where is my copy of Silent Hill, you may be asking. Now, this is a weird story. So, I order it, get a confirmation email, then I get a dispatch email, then I get a cancellation email, then I get a refund email, then I get a tracking email. So I don't know what happened to my copy of Silent Hill. Yes, the money got refunded, but supposedly the tracking is still out there. And unfortunately, like I said, time was against us with the PlayStation Platinum project. And unfortunately, yes, I left it to the last minute. And no, I do not have a copy of PlayStation 1 Silent Hill on the Platinum range. It's a very infuriating one, but that's the thing with the PlayStation Platinum project. It's a race against time, and it seems time beat us this time. But of course, there has been some wins through the CEX app, and honestly, if you are ever looking for a game, always make sure you hit that notify button for if the game ever comes in stock. I never expected this game to come back in stock on the CX website. It's come in stock once in the past 12 months, and I got this game for an absolute bargain. Ridge Racer Type 4. This was one of the games which I honestly doubted it existed. I hit that notify button on the CX app, it turned up, and honestly, this was my best CX win of the PlayStation Platinum project. So the PlayStation Platinum project has been all about wins and losses. Let's just go on a massive win streak. So we have Soul Blade, then we have Soviet Strike, Spider-Man, Spider-Man 2, the entire Spyro trilogy, absolutely fantastic games. Probably best to play these on the remastered versions. Then we have a real oddity. This game was only released in Germany. This was the first import game which I got for the PlayStation Platinum project, and it boggles the mind that Star Wars Rebel Assault 2 was only released in Germany. No idea why. If you know, let me know in the comments down below. It's one of the weirdest things that's happened in the PlayStation Platinum project. Then we have Street Fighter Plus X, a really hard to find game which I was lucky to find in my local last level games. Stuart Little 2. Speaking of 2, then we go to weird, no Siphon Filter, but Siphon Filter 2 and Siphon Filter 3. But then back to normality, we have Tekken 1, Tekken 2 and Tekken 3. And we are in the T section, and there is a weird story coming up for these next two games. The next two games here on the PlayStation Platinum project are Tenchu Stealth Assassins and Tenchu 2 Birth of the Stealth Assassins. Both of these games have been listed on the CEX website for the whole of 2023. And I finally managed to get a stock alert for Tenchu 2 late in the PlayStation Platinum project, only to be shot down hours later with a cancellation. I'm just guessing they accidentally listed the PlayStation Platinum version rather than the black label version, which is gutting, as honestly, I doubted either Tenchu or Tenchu 2 existed. That is until very late in December. On eBay, I found a copy of Tenchu Stealth Assassins in France for the PlayStation Platinum project, and again, the price was high, but I had to buy. And here we are, a few days into January, and unfortunately it is not here. This is the thing, we are in the new year after the festive period. Post is delayed, but hopefully very soon I'll have that copy here for the PlayStation Platinum project. Carrying on off the Tenchu fiasco, let's go on some more wins. So we have Thunderhawk 2 Firestorm. Then we have Tigger's Honey Hunt. Yes, another Disney game that sold over 400,000 copies. Time Crisis, one of the best games on the PlayStation 1. Time Crisis Project Titan, which is getting harder and harder now to find. Common Game Alert, Toka Touring Cars, Toka Touring Cars 2, Toka World Touring Cars, the hardest of the Toka games to find. Then just the one Rainbow Six game, Rogue Spears, the only one that got a platinum release. Then we go into some weird territories. We have Tomb Raider, Tomb Raider 2 and Tomb Raider 3. But unfortunately on the list we did have Tomb Raider Chronicles, but it's another game which unfortunately I question if it exists. But thankfully, heading on from there, we have the Tony Hawk's 4 games. Yes, I have all of them. Tony Hawk's 1, Tony Hawk's 2, Tony Hawk's 3 and Tony Hawk's 4. 4 of the best game soundtracks on any console ever made. Here we go then folks, the culmination of a year of work, the final games for the PlayStation Platinum project. And unfortunately there are a few misses. So I could not find a copy of Total Driving it is again a game which I question its existence. But we move straight into Toy Story 2, a game which was surprisingly hard to find and surprisingly expensive. Then we have the opposite end of the spectrum, True Pinball 2, V-Rally, V-Rally 2, Wipeout. We're doing well on the Wipeout franchise, Wipeout 2097, but unfortunately again another fail with Wipeout 3 Platinum release, which again I do not think exists. As I said at the start of the PlayStation Platinum project, to the best of my knowledge, this is a list of all the games. As we've seen throughout, there is exceptions to the list, but that's what this series has been about: discovery, breaking new ground, and exploring the PlayStation 1 Platinum collection. But back on the wins, we have Worms. Yes, I have Worms. Then we have WRC FIA World Rally Championship, a real mouthful and a surprisingly rare game I had to import. We are coming down to our final 3 games. SmackDown 2 Know Your Role, and the final game we needed for the PlayStation Platinum project, WWF Warzone, which I secured at the last minute from a good friend of the channel, PS2 Many Games, who donated this one to the PlayStation Platinum project. So with this game, we have come to the end of the road. We are at the end of the PlayStation Platinum project. We have got as many games as possible that we could to cross off this list of 160 PAL released PlayStation 1 Platinum games. Let's break down the numbers and see if we completed the PlayStation Platinum project. Let's break down the numbers then. From the start of the PlayStation Platinum project, to the best of my knowledge, there was 160 games released under the Platinum label for the PlayStation 1 here in the PAL region. But as I said, all along in the PlayStation Platinum project, this was to the best of my knowledge, and I have come to the conclusion there is games on this list that I am not convinced exist. If anyone has any evidence to the contrary, I'm happy to hear, and I'll be happy to then hunt these games out. The games off this list, which I believe through this year of research do not exist, include Ace Combat, Colony Wars Red Sun, Command & Conquer Red Alert Retaliation, Dancing Stage Euromix, Dino Crisis 2, Tenchu 2, Birth of the Stealth Assassins, Tomb Raider Chronicles, Total Driving, and Wipeout 3. These are the games which I don't think exist in the PlayStation Platinum project, and it changes the numbers. Of the original 160 games required for the PlayStation Platinum project, that means there is 10 less. 10 games which I believe do not exist, taking the number to 150 games. Now, how many of these games did we find? That is the big question, but first things first, on that list, there was of course no Walt Disney's The Jungle Book Groove Party, taking the numbers to the PlayStation Platinum project up to 151. Here we are then, the end of 1 year of work, the culmination of the PlayStation Platinum project. I managed, of the 151 games required for the PlayStation Platinum project, to get 146, which I am very happy with. There is 5 games which we are missing for the PlayStation Platinum project, including 2 FIFA games, but one of which is on our way here as we speak. So we are missing FIFA 2001, FIFA Football 2005, Need for Speed Road Challenge, which is just annoying because it was human error, Parasite Eve 2, and Silent Hill. But here is the thing, this is the advantage of these 5 games. These are just missed opportunities. All of these games have appeared either in the wild or on eBay. It's just been a case of wrong place and wrong time. It's been when I haven't had money, or I haven't been able to pick something up, or it's just sold very quickly on eBay, which at the end of the day, the PlayStation Platinum project, whilst it was a challenge over 2023, it doesn't have to end there. All I have to do is find these 5 games, which I have found before, to complete the PlayStation Platinum project. Now, I'm not copping out at the end of this project. I have tried my hardest to get to the end of this project, and the help of the community is why we've got this close to completing the PlayStation Platinum project. And honestly, to only miss 5 games, I think I'm going to pat myself on the back and say I and we have completed the PlayStation Platinum project. The big question is then, what happens now? Here we are at the start of 2024, and first things first, I want to try and find the last 5 games and get that complete PlayStation 1 PAL collection. But what about the rest of 2024? Of course, in 2023 we had the PlayStation Platinum project, but I said at the start of this episode, and I've teased it for a long while, of course we have a brand new challenge for 2024, and today I'm happy to reveal, I'm sure a lot of you may have already guessed this, but 2024 will be the year of the Platinum Project PS2. That's right folks, for 2024 we are going even bigger and even better with the Platinum Project PS2. This time I'm aiming to collect the complete PAL release PlayStation 2 collection, and this collection is even bigger. We are talking 256 games. And this is going to be my biggest challenge to date. If you thought the PlayStation Platinum project was crazy, trust me folks, you ain't seen nothing yet. This is where you folks watching come in. With the PlayStation Platinum project, I could not have done it by myself. I needed the help of the entire retro gaming community and the entire YouTube community to make this dream come true. And the same can be said of the Platinum Project PS2. If you have any Platinum games for the PlayStation 2, get in touch. If you wish to sell your games, trade your games, or even donate them to my collection, get in touch via my socials. Without you folks, I will not be able to complete the Platinum Project PS2. Much like the PlayStation Platinum project, with the Platinum Project PS2, we will be heading all around the UK, hitting up independent game shops, CEX stores and gaming conventions to try and find these 256 PlayStation 2 Platinum games. But here's the thing, there are some subtle differences with the PlayStation 2 Platinum range. Firstly, PlayStation 2 games are definitely more available than PS1 games. I see PlayStation 2 games much more often in places like charity shops, car boots, Facebook Marketplace. So I'm hoping, even though there's more games to find, they're going to be more readily available. And a lot of these games are cheap, but it's the sheer numbers, 256 games, which I need to find to complete the Platinum Project PS2. There we have it then folks, the culmination of 365 days of hard work and grind, and we have got to the end of the PlayStation Platinum project. And from the bottom of my heart, I could not have done it without you folks watching and the retro gaming community here in the UK. This was a team effort, and it just goes to show if we work together we can achieve anything. And heading into 2024, the stakes have never been higher. I'm already out on the hunt, and hopefully with my hard work and your support, this year we'll be able to complete the Platinum Project PS2. I hope you've enjoyed this video. I hope you've enjoyed the entire series. Stay tuned, big things coming in 2024, but until then, let the games begin. See you all soon.